Justin Myrick, discussing topics from education to finance. All the advice you'll need on life right here, you'll find it. With kings who weathered every climate and come out shining, so come and get inspired. My uncles and me, it takes my uncles and me. It takes my uncles and me. It takes my uncles and me. It takes my uncles and me.
What's up, family? Thank you for tuning into the My Uncles and Me podcast, a podcast with a purpose where we have accomplished older men give advice to a younger man on their insight, their wisdom, their knowledge, how they got to be where they are, and what they would say to the younger generation that's coming up after them. So, if that's what you like to hear, then stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of the My Uncles and Me podcast. We are back again, y'all. Woo! Yes, and today I have an extremely accomplished person with me. I mean, he's also a friend to Uncle Macam. So, we keeping the energy up, we keeping it going. But allow me to introduce Dr. A. Dennis.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
No problem. Thank you for being on the show today.
Sure.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
So let me read his bio because it is extensive, and I do think a lot of people should know about who we have on the couch with us today. So, D.A. Dennis Sr., Ph.D., is the author of The Reflections of an Educator, a work that is geared toward the self-reflection process for urban educators and paraprofessionals as they embark upon shaping and molding the minds of young people, starting at the Head Start level. The book is a short reflective workbook for interaction and introspection. He is also an author of The Perils of Institutional Indoctrination, Getting Beyond the Veil, a work that deals with his journey from religion into his conscious relationship with the Creator. The work also highlights the history of religion itself and the need for metaphysical awakening. Dr. Dennis is the founder and CEO of Mastery Beyond Boundaries, LLC, which is a community-based organization with its foundation rooted in holistic life counseling. He served in the United States Army from 1989 to 1992 in Germany and was deployed for 6 months to Desert Storm. Upon his end of time in service, he served in law enforcement and as an investigator in the Cherry Hill area of Maryland. He has served as a troubled youth boot camp instructor for 23 years for the Youth Build program, serving the Baltimore and New York branches, and has been a community activist and advocate for youth and families. For 25 years, he served as an executive protection specialist for several dignitaries, celebrities, and politicians, teaching martial arts, Aikido, and other defensive offensive techniques to many protection teams across the United States. Okay then, all right. He currently serves professionally as a holistic life counselor, certified life coach, and pastoral counselor for Mastery Beyond Boundaries, LLC, where he also conducts lectures, workshops, and seminars on the importance of mental health awareness for the individual, family, and also business levels, helping to bridge the gap between executives and employees. Dr. Dennis' accomplishments, skills, educational background, and training reflect a commitment to the philosophy of grassroots integrity and self-awareness. His career at every level has been seminal in advocating upward mobility for others. So one more time.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So I'm glad to have you on the couch, and I do have some questions for you. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the first one, how did Mastery Beyond Boundaries start?
Mastery Beyond Boundaries was a grassroots organization, as the bio says, but it started out just as a self-help organization. We would go around and teach young individuals and also families, how to help to structure the home life. In Baltimore, there's a lot of broken homes, as we would call it. Okay, both parents are not home. Mm-hmm. Grandmothers and grandfathers raising the children. Mm-hmm. Uncles and aunts raising the children, or sometimes the children raising themselves. And from the area that I come from, in the heart and the inner city of Baltimore, there was a lot of that. So Master Beyond Boundaries started again as a coalition to help families come together. to provide youth activities and programs so that we could be involved. They eliminated around the United States now. They eliminated recreation centers. You have community centers, but recreation centers for the youth, sports teams, basketball, football, baseball. Those teams coming out of recreation centers when I was coming up, those things are almost gone. Now everything is a team sport in school. Well, what do we do after school? So Master Beyond Boundaries was an idea of mine to be able to pull that together. All of the gaps that we have in our families and with our youth, pull that together and see what we can do to help to bridge the gap between our young people, our families, and basically the city itself, with all of the disparities and issues that it had.
Okay. All right. So I understand that you have a PhD in metaphysics. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So tell me, what is that? Like, what is metaphysics? Because I have not heard of it until, I was like doing my research on you. Yes, sir.
So metaphysics, the PhD is actually in holistic life counseling, but the bachelor's and master's and the practitioner portion of it is metaphysics. So metaphysics has to do with getting to the root cause of say, even yourself.
Right.
Okay, what makes you tick? Not just coming to you and looking at you for face value. What is that I see in Justin? No, I need to understand what's going on with Justin. So what makes you? That goes back to mom and dad. That goes back before mom and dad. Why do you think the way you think? It also deals with the aspects of spirituality. So when I read a book, am I looking at the words? Do I take it, again, for face value or literally? Or is there something behind it? And it always is. There's something behind it. And so getting to the root cause of life itself, that's what metaphysics is.
I like that. And I really like how you talk about, or how you talked about getting to the root of things. Because I've seen with certain people, everyone's like, oh, they act like this, they act like that. And I'm like, well, why do they act like that? Like there's always, and I'm a firm believer of, if you see somebody acting weird, I'm like, there's probably a reason a deeper reason as to why, they're acting a certain way.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that if we do that we'll be less judgmental. To one another.
Yes, sir.
We may see certain things that we don't necessarily agree with, but there's a reason behind everything that we do, and we have to look at self first. And I think sometimes that we, as a young man and then even as older men, sometimes we forget where we came from. We forget the things that we went through. How did we get where we are?
Right.
And we look at other individuals and the way that they're acting and the things that they do, and we want to judge what they're doing, or they shouldn't be doing it. Wait a minute, where did you come from? Were you in a bubble? Was your life like filled with unicorns and clouds and ice cream and was that your life?
Right.
And if it was, then maybe you need to go to somebody else's neighborhood who doesn't have a mother and a father. Maybe you need to go to a drug-ridden neighborhood to see how you would live and how you would survive having to go back and forth to school, walking through and walking over needles and crack vials and things of that nature. Maybe you need to experience that before you judge that young man or that young woman.
Right. I mean, that's so true. Now, I heard through the grapevine that you like the Invictus poem by William Ernest Henley.
Yes.
So I want to know, how did you come across that book? Because I read it myself, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. But I read it, and I was just wondering, what exactly made it resonate with you, and like how you came across it, because it's not a poem that you would just normally, kind of come across.
Right. Life. When I first came across it, it was when I was in my beginning stages of being in the Masonic order. I'm a Mason. And so that poem back in the late 90s to early 2000s was something that I came across there. Also, the movie that Mandela was in was called, I believe, Invictus, if I'm not mistaken. And that poem was quoted. The poem itself resonates with me because of the places I've been and where I've come from. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole. That right there you can speak about in volumes because of the dark places in our lives. Sometimes we can't see our way. We know where we reside, but we can't see how we're going to get forward. Where we're going to go, who we're going to talk to, and sometimes it's just you. Maybe you need that dark place. Maybe you need to be in that place sometimes to be quiet. I think a lot of times we have a challenge with being quiet. Being quiet a lot of times is something that we get nervous, so we need people to start talking and saying things and what have you. But out of the night that covers me, a covering is not necessarily a bad thing. Covering is also protection. And so that's just the first sentence. And I know you've read the rest of it. The rest of it even goes deeper, but it resonated with me because of the places I've been. Growing up in the hood, as we would call it, in Baltimore City, going through to high school, fighting almost every day in high school, going into the military, going to Desert Storm, the things that I saw there, which wasn't pleasant. And not just because of where we are and what we were doing, but really, to be honest with you, you want me to be candid, not because of them, because of the U.S. military. So I went through a lot. And so that poem just spoke volumes to my life.
I like that. Now, I come from a big military family.
Okay.
I've got uncles, military, I got cousins in the military, brother in the military. That one right over there. Yes, ma'am. Yes, you. She's also been in the military too,
Okay.
Desert Storm.
Okay.
And she was also in Germany. So when I was reading that you were in the military in Germany, I was like,
Yes.
oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So could you just talk a little bit about that and kind of like
Sure.
what was your time and your experience like in the military and kind of like what you got out of it what you got out of it and what you would kind of glean for young people.
Okay, so everything in the military was not negative. You know what I mean? The training itself, especially boot camp or basic training, as we would call it, and AIT, Advanced Individual Training, it wasn't negative. That was a wonderful part of it. You know what I mean? Because it deals with testing you to see how far you can go. Really more mentally than anything. Your body can do whatever it is you want it to, whatever you will it to do. But it was really a mental thing. And so me going through that, starting out in ROTC in high school and going through that and then being sent over to Germany, I did no state time, what we call state time whatsoever. So I wasn't here. All of my time was in Germany, starting with Stuttgart, Germany. Was there for about maybe a year. Then went to Desert Storm for 6 months, came back. And Mom will understand this. They decommissioned the barracks once we came back. Then I still didn't have enough USERA time or overseas time, so they sent me to Berlin to finish out. And I was there until 92. The military itself was an experience that I actually needed because of where I came from. I needed the discipline. I needed the guidance. I needed to learn those skills. Now, my skills were a little bit different. I was what you call 11 Bravo Airborne. And so we weren't really taught to do anything else but to kill. That's really it. Along with jumping out of planes, which was really crazy when I think about it. But that's what we did. I was a part of, in Germany, I was a part of a unit called F Company 51st LURS. Mm-hmm. So it's long range surveillance. We were scouts. And so our job was to go in Desert Storm to feed back information from the Iraqi border to military intelligence. And so it was rough. We were the modern day tunnel rats.
Wow.
Without tunnels. Right.
Wow. That does sound like it was intense.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it was intense. I was young, man. I was 18 when I went in. I was 19 when I got to Desert Storm. So I was a baby.
Wow.
I was a baby.
Crazy.
And the things that I saw is what began to shape the way that I think today, along with my other experiences. Mm-hmm. But being in Germany that was wonderful. If I told my wife, we probably wouldn't have met because I would have stayed. I would have stayed in Germany because the people over there actually were wonderful. All of the stories that you hear about Hitler and that's what they Hitler and the Nazis. That's all they talk about, right? Germany itself is beautiful, and the people treated us with such grace. I didn't experience anything negative in the country itself. The things that I experienced that may not have been what I wanted it to be was all pretty much within in the military. The experience I'm thankful for, the good and the bad. I wouldn't want anybody else to go through it because that was a dark place.
Right.
That was a dark place.
Right.
That was black as the pit from pole to pole, right? And it was only me. So I had to figure things out. 19 in a country that I knew nothing about. Mom and dad is at home. And so I remember having to call mom and dad and apologize.
Really?
Apologize, right? And I was apologizing for all the times that I didn't listen.
Wow.
Yeah. I apologized for everything that I had done. I didn't listen. The times I was hard-headed, the times I snuck out of the house to go see a little girl, and several times and finally got caught with the police sitting in my bedroom. You know, so I apologized to my father as well for not listening to the wisdom that he was giving me, you know, because now I'm on my own. I have to do it for me. There's nobody else there but strangers and my comrades. That's it. And so that taught me a lot. My father laughed at me.
He laughed at
me. And he wasn't laughing to really be funny. He was laughing because he knew this day would come. He knew it would come. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds intense. Okay, so now following up, because I do have another question. Following up from, you talked about you went from, I guess like Baltimore to Germany. So I'm wondering what made you go from Baltimore to, here to Spartanburg?
So it was really by the way of Florida, by the way of Columbia, right? So, and I forgot about York, Pennsylvania, and Philly. So I went from Baltimore it was still in the 2000s in Baltimore. 2009, I left Baltimore. 2010, I went to York, Pennsylvania. I began to teach martial arts there with a friend who I found out was really a part of my father's family. Her last name was Dennis, and her mother's there. And I said, wait a minute, there got to be some type of connection. So probably far, far removed is what I found out that there was. But taught martial arts, was there trying to really get myself together. I'd been through a divorce. I went through a divorce before I met this wonderful woman over here that I'll talk to you about. But that was a part of me also getting myself together as well, changing my life. So from York, Pennsylvania, in teaching and training, I trained bodyguards there as well, executive protection specialists also. So I had a company I started there. And then I went to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to stay for a little while with a spiritual father of mine. And that's when things really began to come together. My wife and I, she was my girlfriend, I guess, at that particular time. We kept in touch, long distance relationship. We talked for a good while. And we finally came together from Philadelphia to Florida. She was already in Florida. And I came down to visit a few times. I think about maybe 2 or 3 times. And then I never went back. So my spiritual father said, son, I know you're not coming back. So he shipped all of my stuff down to Florida, and because I knew that she was the one. And we've been together ever since. Almost 15 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, 15 years. So the moves, whenever I made a move, it had a purpose. It was never just, let me get out of here, or let me go over there. There was a purpose to it. And I may not have understood the entire purpose, but there was always something there for me to experience. I was even homeless in York, Pennsylvania, for a period of time. I was in a shelter. All of my bags were stolen in the shelter. And I had to have some choice words with the head man at the shelter, basically just letting them know that if he didn't make sure my stuff was found or tell me where it was, then him and I was gonna sit down and have some coffee. Right. So we didn't have to have coffee.
That's good. That's good.
It was going to be some strong coffee.
Right.
So we didn't, he told me where I could find my stuff. I found all of my stuff and I got out of that shelter, found a job, and went from there. And again, shortly after that, I went to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Yeah, South Side.
Ooh, South Side.
South Side.
Okay. It's just all right. So, earlier, Doc, you mentioned that you were homeless,
Yes.
and I just want to, really kind of dig into that and kind of talk about that whole experience, because when someone does say they're homeless, I know that through a lot of people's minds that does bring up a whole entire slew of, oh wow, this person, and there is a stigma attached to that.
Right.
And of course, there's also a story, because no one just starts out, you kind of, there's a road to that, and of course a road out of that too. So I was just wondering if you could really talk about how that happened, what you experienced during that time, and also how you got out of that, because there are, especially in this country, because I lived in Los Angeles, California for about the past year, and so I've seen my fair share of homelessness, where you ride under, it'll be a bright day outside, but you ride under bridges and there's nothing but tents. There's, we've had where we've walked past, tents on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and there's broken glass, there's needles and stuff like that. So it's a very real issue in this country, and I was just wondering if you could kind of just go into all of that.
Sure. So when I originally went to York, Pennsylvania, it was on the understanding that I would actually go and live with a friend of mine's father. Okay, mind you, now I was ordained and everything at this time.
Yes, sir.
So the friend that I had, she was actually ordained with me, but when she found out that I wanted to leave, that I was going to leave Baltimore, she made a suggestion. I can get in touch with my father. What do you think about York, Pennsylvania? I said, it really doesn't matter, because I knew in my mind I was on a journey. So she connected me with her father. I went there December 24th, snow everywhere. A friend of mine took me there, dropped me off. And her father used to be one of the, I'll say it like this. His family was one of the most notorious families in Baltimore. Okay. He was also an 8th degree black belt, but he was living in I guess you would call it a assisted living. Of course, there's stipulations and everything. He was legally blind at that particular time, but very intelligent. And so he invited me, and you could come stay with me. I've never met you, but my daughter told me about you. You all have been friends for blah, blah, blah. So let's, you come on. I got you.
Right.
I said, okay. So when I got there, I started noticing that individuals were looking and watching and trying to find out who I was. And he would walk me around York, Pennsylvania. Could go anywhere he wanted, and he had a walking stick too. Could go anywhere he wanted. Nobody stopped him. When he went in, everything he got was free.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And so he was teaching me the ropes in York, Pennsylvania, and I also became kind of like his apprentice. Because once he stopped walking around, he got a little sicker. And once he stopped doing that, then what I did was I began to go out there to the places that he sent me to. And I had no issue. So really what it was is that he was letting everybody know pretty much he's with me. Not really understanding that.
Right.
And so things began to open up, but not at that point where I really needed him to be, because when he started getting phone calls about who is that living in your apartment, because there are stipulations that you have where if that person is not on that particular lease and you don't have permission to do it, you're not supposed to have them there. You can actually lose your apartment. Okay. And so when I found that out, of course, he's not going to, allow anybody to move him anywhere. That was his attitude. But I told him, I said, sir, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can find a job. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to leave here. I'll find somewhere to go, don't worry. He said, nobody's going to tell me what to do. I said, no, sir, because you'll be out on the street, and we're not going to do that. And so he respected it. I left. I found a shelter before I left, and I left, went to the shelter. I think I was at the shelter for maybe a month. It was definitely different, because I had never been homeless before, without a home, without a family. So it was different, but it wasn't anything that I couldn't adapt to because of where I came from.
Right.
And so the experience itself, it was eye-opening. It was definitely a lesson, for me, showing me where you can actually go if you allow yourself to fall down that rabbit hole, so to speak. Even though I made the decision to leave his place, I still didn't know what I was going to do. I had ideas. People were giving me places that I could go. You have to have a meal ticket and have to have the meal ticket punched every time you eat. You have to be out of the shelter 5 a.m. every single morning looking for a job or whatever you feel like you want to do, because your stay is only for a month, 2 months, 3 months, or what have you. So you have to do what you have to do to make sure that your day is productive, because you never know when they're going to say, we need that bunk.
Right.
And so that experience humbled me even more. Humbled me even more. It let me know, even though I was in the hood, in the ghetto, knew about the projects and this, that, and other, you really don't know anything until you basically have nothing. You and your bags. That's it. You don't know anybody. I was introduced to people, but I didn't know anybody in York, Pennsylvania. I was getting to know people, trying to see where I was going to go. And so finally, I just took a walk around York. And I saw a clothing store. I was very good in sales. I could talk. My wife says sometimes I talk too long. But I knew I had the gift of gab. I could talk. And so I walked into the store and I began to look at the suits. A guy came and asked me if I could help him. I said, yes, I need a job. I need a job. So he looked at me. What do you know about suits? My father, I don't know if you wouldn't know, but in Baltimore, there was a place called Old Town Mall. At Old Town Mall, there was a men's clothing store called the Diplomat Shop.
Okay.
My father worked there for 18 years. He serviced the Temptations, the Delphonics, now you do know these names, right?
Okay, I know the Temptations.
Know the Temptations? Okay.
Yes, sir. I know the Temptations. That's about. So I think it's the Temptations, the Stylistics, and I think that's
okay.
About it.
Yeah. There we go. So the Stylistics, the Delphonics, the Shy Lights, all of them, when they came to perform at the theater on Pennsylvania Avenue in Baltimore, they would come there and get outfits a lot of times, or at least come to shop and get outfits to leave. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up in a clothing store, with my father, and that's where I learned about clothes. And then he wore a suit all the time. Him and my grandfather, they wore suits. The way we used to dress back then. When you went somewhere, you made sure you were presentable.
See, that's what Mom says all the time. Cause listen, I'm the first person to throw on some ripped jeans and a t-shirt and go. And she's like, "You gonna walk out wearing that?" And I'm like, "Why not? Like, why wouldn't I?" And she's like, "That's not how we would dress back in the day." And I was like, "Oh, really?" She's like, "No, we used to wear suits she's like, Sunday's best everywhere you go." And I was like, "Oh."
Everywhere, most of the time. I mean, now jeans or what have you, it's fine. Mm-hmm. A t-shirt if you go into the store. But if you're going to spend some time somewhere, we would make sure that we were dressed. And our parents, they were not having it. Until the era of and we'll get into that later, until the era of Run DMC and all of that came with the fat shoelaces and the patent leather Adidas and all that, nothing they could do.
Basically hip hop.
They could
Hip-hop.
They could do nothing with us then.
And I do have a question for you about that.
Sure. So the homeless portion taught me a lot. I was able to get a job. I was hired and I worked there. I learned a little bit more because he was the owner, he was a salesman, and he was the seamstress.
Oh, so you were learning it like from the top down.
Everything.
Wow.
Everything. And so he was very good. He had a business outside of there as well, very positive in the community. So from there, that's when things began to look up. I had money coming in. So I had to think about what it is that I wanted to do. Where was I going to go next? I had an individual come down that was in ministry, and he was trying to get me to go into this church and that church. And I really wasn't interested at that time. I said, listen, I have to get my life together. Mm-hmm. We started dealing with things later on when it came to that, and we could talk about that as well. But my thing at that point, I need to get my life together. Let me have some money coming in. For the first time in my life, even though I was raised in the inner city of Baltimore, we actually lived on the west side. I was born in northwest Baltimore. I lived in the early 90s when I came home from the military, right around the corner where they shot the wire.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
2 blocks away.
Wow.
So that's a real story. Those are real individuals. There's only a couple individuals in there that were not real people. Even the addicts, they were real people. They were playing real addicts. You know, the police chiefs, the detectives, everything. So being in York, Pennsylvania at that time, understanding that I needed to make a decision where I was going to go next, what I was going to do, and make a plan. A lot of times we don't plan, and there's 12 P's along with Invictus. It says piss poor performance promotes pain. I'm shortening it up right now. Piss poor performance promotes pain. That has to do with planning as well. So when you don't plan, when you don't have anything in your mind about where you're going to go and what you're going to do, then you can't be upset about where you find yourself. You know? So planning is important, regardless of what you're going through. You can cry, it can hurt, but you still have to understand I have to get up from here. There's somebody, we all have a purpose. There's somebody, some places I need to go, things that I need to do, and there's definitely somebody that I can help.
That's a bar.
Right.
That is a bar. So if you're gonna write anything down, write down that, okay? Because one thing that my parents definitely stress is planning.
Yes.
You know, it's always okay. Make sure you prepare in advance. You know, oh, did you? You know, make sure you get things in as early as possible. I find it interesting. You say that you lived around where they shot The Wire, because I actually worked with Banga Akanabe.
Okay.
On a movie called Knucklehead, and it's got Alfred Wood, and that's actually the photo with me and Banga
right.
and Alfred over there. And it's
Gotcha.
actually the film that got me my American Black Film Festival award. So when you said that,
Yes.
I was like, I've got like a small little thin connection to it. But that's crazy that you said you lived around that area.
Yes, and knew many of the individuals. As a matter of fact, one of them passed away. It was a jail scene where this big, tall, dark-skinned guy was walking with the real, I have to get his name, he was the stick-up kid. Maybe the name will come to you. I can't remember it right now, but he was one who would rob drug dealers. Mm-hmm. The real person actually played in a jail scene when they were about to take out one of the other guys. He had a kufi on. I don't know if you remember that. He had a kufi on. He was brown skinned. He was kind of tall as well. Well, one I was a partner in business with, his name was Derek. He passed away a few years ago. The other one was the actual real stick-up kid. He's in his 60s now, but he was in the film. So he wasn't playing himself, he was playing an inmate. Wow. And so I knew him, also. So it was definitely very, very real. And that's what I loved about The Wire. But everybody asks me, as soon as I say I'm from Baltimore, that's the first thing that comes up most of the time. So The Wire, The Wire. Yeah, I pretty much lived The Wire. Because in that area, and between there, places like Cherry Hill, Maryland, what you said was I was an investigator on my bio. Mm-hmm. Before that, Cherry Hill, Maryland was one of the most notorious places, and still is today, as far as drugs are concerned, homelessness, even things that go on here in Spartanburg, unfortunately, child hunger, and anything that you can name that was created. These things did not happen. They're not happenstance, And the young people, we really need to understand, and we need to teach this, that when you see the hood or the ghetto and the suburbs, that's not something that just happened. Homelessness, it didn't just happen. So what they try to make you believe is this. A few of us in this room, we got together and we went and found a nasty plot of land. We said, we're going to make this the ghetto. This is it. We're going to be low income. We're going to be poverty stricken. We're going to have drug dealers everywhere. The police are going to come every few days and lock our people up. We're going to be on welfare. We're going to be, listen, it's going to be one of the worst places, and we love it. This is what we want. So we're going to block out this plot of land in every single city, in every state, and we're going to call it, black people, we're going to call it the ghetto or the hood. This is what we want. That's our dream. You know that's not true. Mm-hmm. So if you have a suburb, we can have suburbs everywhere. So when you see homelessness, it shouldn't be there. How does an inmate get 3 meals a day, juice, water, cookies, crackers, what have you, and a bed. And the homeless person gets nothing. So, but there's a benefit from the prisoner because they're making things that we use out here. And the state is getting paid for them being incarcerated. So I'm saying all that to say, when we hear things like homeless, first of all, it shouldn't be. Now, do things happen? Yes, like it happened with me. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. That's something that people say when they don't know what to say about where you come from and what you've experienced, your history and everything else. And so coming through York, Pennsylvania, going to Philadelphia, the South Side, which is the same as me being in Baltimore, leaving there, going to Florida, staying there for 8 years, establishing myself in a life with my empress, right? And then coming to Columbia, South Carolina. That was my South Carolina experience. Starting there, I'm allergic to Columbia as well.
Oh, you're allergic?
By the way, yeah.
You're allergic
I'm
to
physically
Columbia.
allergic to Columbia.
Now, why is that?
I have no idea. My face one day swole up like I was in a prize fight.
Really? In Columbia?
In Columbia. And I went to get a skin test and they told me, the doctor basically said, you're allergic to everything here. Dogs, cats, trees, grass.
And it's just in that area?
Just in Columbia. Now I can go and visit, but I can't stay. So went to Columbia. Left Columbia, we found an apartment in Greenville. And I took her to Greenville, it was a surprise. And she never wanted to leave. From Greenville, we ended up in Spartanburg, and this is where we brought her home, and we've been here now for 3.5 years. Everywhere that we've gone, though, it's always been about community, always been about seeing what we could do to help someone. It's always been grassroots, starting with our people. Mm-hmm. Starting with our people. I can't do for somebody else what I don't understand. I understand me, I understand our people, our youth, and I understand our families. So you know what? This is what we do up to today. You know, my wife has a nonprofit. I have Master Beyond Boundaries, and everything that we do. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Everything that we do is geared towards what we're doing today on this podcast, which is striving our best to give something to someone that they may not have had before. Give them a leg up, as we would say, even if it's just through words. Somebody may hear something that sparks something in them, and it changes their entire life. If we can do that, there's a song that they sang, an old church song. It says, if I can help somebody as I pass along the way, then my living should not be in vain.
Well, Mom knows it. Mom knows it. No, but I do like that. And speaking of community, I've heard a lot about you from Uncle Mackham. So I want you to tell us how you know Uncle Mackham.
It's not true.
He said good stuff. He said good stuff. Don't.
Okay. All right.
No, he said good stuff. So I'm just wondering, how you guys met and how that relationship, developed.
We actually met, and shout out to my brother, Mr. Empowerment, Scott McHann.
Yes, Mr. Empowerment.
Mr. Empowerment, I love you. He's definitely a brother and a friend. We met serving the community. There was I think it was a repast, if I'm not mistaken, from a funeral, and we were feeding the family, and I was behind the table, serving food and helping where I could.
He talked about this.
He walks in, but he's so large in life.
Yeah, he's got a huge presence.
Oh my
huge
goodness!
Personality.
So he walks in, and I look, I see him, don't know who he is. He goes and speaks to Pam. She owned the actual place where we was, and she passed away not too long ago, unfortunately. So definitely condolences to her and her family. Continue condolences. But he went and spoke to her, and then he spoke to my wife, and he came over to me. My wife said, that's my husband right there. Came over to me. He looked at me. He said, I have no idea what we're supposed to do, but there's something we're supposed to do together. And we shook hands, and he walked away. That was almost 3 years ago. And we've been working together for the community and youth and everything ever since. So this man who is larger than life is one who, when he says something, is exactly what it is that he means. If he does care about you, If he says he's going to get something done, he works hard to get it done. He's involved in so many different projects. But the main thing is that when he loves hard, and you know that he cares about you and that he loves you when he says it, because he's always there. Anytime he talks about the young people, he gets choked up because of his background and where he came from and what he's been through. He's been through some things as well. I'm quite sure he told you about it. But now he has dedicated his life to being that example for those who may have been told the same things that he was told when he was a child, which was, you'll never be anything. And so now look at him today. And so that's the type of individual that I want to be involved with, because not only do they have a story, they have a background that would definitely be able to do something and make a difference in somebody's life, and they continue to mentor them, if it's possible. He's one who understands what it is not to have anything, to be to a point today where he's being recognized for so many different things, positive things. Sometimes he don't even know what to do with it. And so that's my brother, that's my friend, and I appreciate him.
Awesome. Now, what is your advice for youth that's wanting to start their own business? Because, when I started my business, of course, I had an incredible example to look to, because I've seen them do this since I was in high school, so I kind of had a really good framework of, what a successful business should be like and how it should function. But I know that not everybody does have that example. So I'm just wondering and a few of the questions that I actually have are like business related for young people, because not every young person my age, or in high school, they want to start a business, but there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot that, it's like, where do I start, So I guess, what are some of your best tips for, starting your business successfully?
Okay. So understand that the business itself must be you.
Okay.
It must be you. You can either be a business owner, you could be a CEO, or you could be an entrepreneur. They're three totally separate things.
Really? Because normally I hear them used like interchangeably for the same thing.
Well, they're titles, right? If you look at a CEO, I can be a CEO of any company. You can actually change your bylaws around and make me CEO of this podcast or of the business that the podcast is under. I know absolutely nothing about what you do.
Okay.
But I'm the CEO because maybe of my business sense, right? But I cannot do what you do at all, right? So I'm the chief I know how to run meetings. I know about parliamentary law. I know how to go out here and get business. I know how to go out here and get funding, but I cannot do what you do. I am only the CEO, right? Business owner. Who in here cannot get an EIN for free through the government? Anybody. You can, right now, you can say, I want my business to be called ABCD LLC. Go online, get a free employee identification number. And to the government, you're starting a business, right?
Right.
And you have a social security number, so to speak, for your business, a beginning social security, because there are others. Well, I'm a business owner now. I go to the state here in South Carolina, and I get my bank account. I register with the state. I do all of these other things, right, that we're supposed to do in business. But I do absolutely nothing with the business itself. But when you ask me, I say, yes, I have mastery beyond boundaries. What do you do with it? Well, and then you've had it for 5 years. Well, we're just getting things off the ground. You're a business owner. Right? The money that's in the bank, you put it in there. You have no business coming through, but you own a business. Then you have the entrepreneur. You have the person that works 9 to 5, which most entrepreneurs do, especially starting out, work 9 to 5, 40 hours a week. When you find out what a real entrepreneur is, you understand that you can double that 40. You're going to work 80, maybe to even 120 hours a week. especially when you start dedicating more and more time to your business. And so you're taking the money that you're making over here, you're paying your bills and everything, but you also are taking and investing in your own company, whatever that company may be. So the entrepreneur is actually the one that's doing the work. The entrepreneur gets no sleep or very little.
Yes.
The entrepreneur has a creative mindset, right? They're constantly working on what they're doing every single day. And sometimes, you know, and I tell my wife is definitely an entrepreneur. She's working on a new book right now, by the way. But she works on her projects every day, Monday through Sunday, right? Mm-hmm. She may wake up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning with an idea and go start writing it down, put it on paper. That's an entrepreneur. So those are 3 different aspects. So when somebody, okay, well, what can you tell the business has to be you. You're not going to work that hard for something that you just saw. Okay, we got the talent agency. I'm going to call mine the agency of talent. But it has nothing to do with me. So I'm not going to dedicate the time that I really need to dedicate to it because it's not mine. It's not really my idea. Your ideas are supposed to move from idea to ideal. What's real? It can only do that if it's true, if it truly comes out of you. What's within you? So this podcast is you. You know how I can tell it's you? Because of your energy. You'll get excited. You'll start with your next question. You start bouncing up and down and this, that, and other. This is you. You love it. It's who you are. It's who you are. So it has to be you. And I would tell young entrepreneurs, when you get a business, sit down for a second. Don't just come up with a title, LLC or corp or organization. No. How do you feel when you talk about this business? Do you doodle about this business every single day? When you're at work, sometimes do you daydream and get yourself in trouble with management because you're not necessarily doing your job there because all that's on your mind is your business.
There needs to be that passion.
Right. That passion, that love for it. So it has to be you. It has to be a part of you or it's not going to be successful.
I like that. And I think that's really, one of the most, I think, or at least in my experience from what I've seen, it is important because you're going to be living it and breathing it, 24/7 every day. So
every single day.
Definitely. But I think that's something most people, when they get into it, they don't think about that.
No, sir.
They don't realize it's going to be a lot of hard work. And I've seen this with my own parents, where they're like, oh, everyone wants to be the boss until,
Right.
You have to do certain things. And there's a lot of hard stuff that goes into it, There's a lot of long hours, and from what I've seen, it's kind of like your baby. It's kind of like a...
Exactly. It's your baby. So look at it like this. Your parents had you, right? Mm-hmm. You come out of mom, but dad gave the DNA to mom. So you're part of both of them. You are them. You understand? Mm-hmm. So your business is supposed to be the same thing as, to you. It is a part of your DNA that now has come out in the form of a business. Even when you try, you can't get away from it. Mm-hmm. Even when you feel like you don't want to do it anymore because you may not be getting any sleep or you're not seeing things blossom quick, fast, in a hurry, right? You still can't get away. You find yourself talking about it again. You find yourself writing about it. You find yourself with another new idea. That's when you know that not only are you're in the beginning stages of being a true entrepreneur, but that this business is truly your baby.
Right. That's a bar. That's another bar. I do have one question because you mentioned that you and your wife have an organization, and I would like to talk about that for a moment.
Sure.
So, your latest project is the Hope Project, helping our people emerge.
Yes.
Which you run with your wife. Could you just talk about that? Because I hear that it's really good for, or it's an initiative about youth and about kids. And I also heard that you had at the Piedmont Club, that you had a pitch for young entrepreneurs and their business. So I would definitely love to hear about that too.
Sure. So Hope is definitely the baby of my wife, helping our people emerge. And When she came with it, I knew right then and there that it was going to be successful because of what it concentrates on. It concentrates on the youth and the families and the community. Entrepreneurship and the business side of Hope has to do with getting individuals to be able to realize their dreams, young people, to be able to realize their dreams. Okay, you have a business, it's moving, it has made maybe a few dollars or what have you. Or if you haven't made anything, you have not stopped. You've developed a product. What do you do with that? How do you get that in front of individuals who will be able to help you, even possibly mentor you? The main thing is, how do we help you from the beginning stages of your business, the developmental stage, and then sustainability as well? Taking you from there and saying, listen, now we want to be able to put you in front of some Shark Tank pros. My wife has been friends with Daymond John.
Oh, I had a question about him.
Yes, from the Shark Tank for over 30 years now. They were 16, 17 years old working at Red Lobster in New York. When he was selling the beginning stages of FUBU out of the trunk of his car. And so that relationship from years and years and years turned into something that not only has assisted Hope in helping young people, but it has helped to push and to blossom many other relationships that help the children, the families, every parent who wants their child to be successful just wants that one opportunity for their child so that their child can be better than they were, right? Yes, and when it comes to entrepreneurship and business, if the child, every parent, and mom and dad, I know you all are watching right now, I'm talking about your mom and dad. If parents are not in a place where they want their children to be better than them, then something's wrong.
That's one thing that I hear my mom talk about a lot. She says, I didn't work all this, I didn't work, so hard and come this far just for you to, I guess do less than me. She always talks about the next generation going further than the last generation.
You have to, because you have to understand, going back to the DNA, you are actually not just a double, but you're a triple of your parents. You have some things in you from mom and from dad, but yours is on steroids. You understand? So when your mom and dad look at you, they see themselves to the third power. If there's anger issues, right, you have them to the third power, on and on and on and on. So it should be the same way when parents coming through Hope saying, listen, I would love help from my child. What do we need to do? Hope has now been for 2 years, almost 3 years, working in the community silently at first. And that's another thing I need to say this. Always start off, young entrepreneurs, please. Always start off moving in silence. There are individuals out here that want to take everything you have because they have nothing.
Ooh, that's...
So move in silence.
Say it again, that's a bar.
So Hope, I'll say it again. Move in silence with your business. Begin to make things happen first, so by the time people find out about it, they can't take it. It's already done. Only thing they're looking at is pictures. Right?
Yes,
so that's how Hope started out. Hope started out doing things in the community, just doing it. There was no fanfare, there were no pictures, there was no look at me, there was no newscast and what have you. It was get in, roll your sleeves up, get in and make things happen. Mm-hmm. And so from that, now we have helping our people emerge that is becoming a staple in the community. And so with Hope, we're talking about not only Daymond John, we're talking about individuals from the King of Manufacturing, Chris Guerrera, right? Carmine Danisco, who was the president of the United Inventors Association. Those relationships came out of not only from a Daymond John and his company, but it also came from them seeing work being done. Right?
Yes,
so I'm proud of my wife. She's my boss in Hope. She's just shaking her head. She's the founder and CEO. I'm the vice president and vice president of operations as well. But I love it. I love it because I'm a part of something that's making things happen. I'm seeing a difference in those who are underserved. We deal with young people and families that are underserved and under-resourced. You know, it wasn't called that before. They just changed the name. Now it's underserved and under-resourced. You know, that's the politically correct term, right? But we deal with individuals that are in the hood. We deal with individuals that grew up and didn't have the silver spoons, still trying to figure out how they're going to make things happen. Their parents trying to figure out, what am I going to do with my child? They've eliminated all these things in school that we had to enrich us.
Right.
What am I going to do? So hope has been one of the answers when it comes to entrepreneurship.
That is awesome. That is awesome to hear and to see. You know, and I can tell you're really passionate about it because you sat up.
I love it.
Yes, sir. You went from just chilling back like this, and you was like, well, let me, and you leaned, and I was like, oh, he leaned in. Then he's all in for it. Earlier, you mentioned that you know, you and your wife are connected to Daymond John. I was going to ask how that happened, but I was just going to ask, like, have you met him? You know, like, what's he like? What's he like?
He is one of the most humble individuals that I've ever met. With all of the being worth really over $350 million, right? Mm-hmm. He is an individual who, behind the scenes, will sit just like you and I. What we're doing right now, just have a conversation. As a uncle to a young person, or as a brother to a brother, you know, as a friend to a friend. When it's business, it's business. He's a very serious businessman. But behind the scenes, we can just sit back and parlay and talk, and he tells jokes like everybody. So I don't know why we think that people, we see him on TV, that they don't do the things that we do. You know, he uses the bathroom. You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, I'm saying that because that's the picture that we have, right? That they don't do normal things. No, yes, they do. No matter how much money they have. As a matter of fact, some of them have more problems than we have because of their status. But he keeps it. He loves young people. I don't know if you saw any of the films, and I know it's out there on Facebook and other platforms, but he dresses up. He's so humble. He loves children so much, he'll dress up, put a top hat on and a ringmaster's jacket, right? And get with the children, not standing up on stage far removed. He'll come down and talk to them and listen to them, even though he may have something else to do, and he knows he's going to run late. His passion is with the children. So we've sat down with him several times. You know, my wife knows him, you know, intimately when it comes to their friendship. But we've sat down with him had dinner with him, walked with him. And the main thing is that we listen to him because of his wealth of knowledge, where he's been and where he's still going. He hasn't stopped.
No, that's awesome. Because we watch him on Shark Tank a lot, you know. And so, and going back to what you were saying, because my dad says that a lot, you know, whenever I talk about certain celebrities or stuff like, and you know, Dad's like, well, you know, they're people too. You know, Dad's like, don't, because he's watched me get starstruck, all right? We saw Vanessa Williams, and I'm not going to go too much into the story, but we did see Vanessa Williams, and I was like, oh my God, Vanessa Williams. And Dad was like, calm down. He was like, calm down. Just let her get to her car. Calm down, son. So, no, but that is, I do think we build up an image of, you know, people that we, I guess, do put on a pedestal, you know, whether that be, you know, certain celebrities or politicians or people. So just to hear that he's just a really nice, you know, calm, humble person.
He is. And nephew, I'm going to tell you this. Do you know that individuals that have that type of status, do you know that they wish sometimes that they were where we are?
Really?
Yeah. Because they can no longer go in the public by themselves and just enjoy a sweet tea, enjoy a piece of pizza by themselves without being rushed for autographs and pictures. Can you imagine what that does to you when you're used to being able to do that, and all of a sudden you become successful and that goes away because nobody gives you a minute to be human?
That's interesting. But I actually heard something because they were talking about when people build these big mansions and they've got bowling alleys and, you know, basketball courts, and someone's like, well, you know, we would always want that, but someone's like, they have that because they can't go to those places without being, you know, without being rushed or...
they have to build the life for them and their family that they can still enjoy, right? So they try to do those things: basketball courts, tennis courts, bowling alleys, pools, movie rooms, right?
Yes,
so they can still have the same experiences. It's not the same, but it gives their children and themselves a semblance of that experience that everybody else, still has.
Right.
And so it's almost like being a prisoner sometimes.
It's true.
You can't just go and shake somebody's hand, man, I like your outfit. Because that person's going to recognize you and say, oh my God, and then now it turns into celebrity, right?
Yes, sir.
They don't want that all the time. A lot of them don't want it at all after a while. But with him, he uses his celebrity, he uses his business savvy, he uses the cameras, he uses the things that are written about him to help to continue to push forward for people, for people. He recently did and we were there at the in Harlem at the Apollo. He recently did a Black Entrepreneurship Day.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
A couple months ago. And so his dedication to the community where he comes from and then everybody else abroad is unprecedented.
That sounds so exciting. That sounds awesome. Now, I did my research and I saw you on TikTok, which is...
TikTok?
Yes, sir.
Am I on TikTok?
Yes, sir. There was a doc. And I knew it was you because I saw a video with you and Uncle Mackham too.
Yeah, there's a story. There's a story behind TikTok.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I was surprised because I was like, TikTok, huh?
Right.
So I'm just wondering what made you get on TikTok, but also how have you been using social media to kind of help further your business?
So TikTok, I was vehemently against TikTok. Listen, I couldn't stand TikTok because I didn't see the positive things on TikTok. All I saw was young people getting on there, music is playing, and they just bob their head like this, and now they got 30,000 views. What is this foolishness?
No, you're right. You're right. Like, it does happen on there.
Right. That's all I saw. Or, on the flip side, I saw our young sisters on there twerking. They get 100,000 views, right? And I'm not saying anything, but these are the things that I saw. I did not. My son, we have a 19-year-old. My son has TikTok. And he put something on there that he was sitting in his classroom at Daymond High School. And music was playing, and the music said, I don't want to be here. He's sitting at his desk. He said, I don't want to be here. And he just sat there. It panned over to his teacher and to him. His teacher, then to him. How many views did that get? Over 1 million? So I was not interested in TikTok because I didn't see the other things. One day he came home and he showed me the other things that TikTok had, some of the positive things. And then I kept hearing that, and I don't want TikTok. I still don't want it. I don't like it. Social media is getting ridiculous, right? When I looked at some of the other things that were on there, just like some of the things you would see on Instagram and see on Facebook and people doing positive things, I said, you know what, I'll give it a try. As a matter of fact, he put me on TikTok.
Okay.
For a school project. And I had to do one of the dances that they do out here with young people. And he played the music, he taught me to dance. So they had to show an old person doing the dance and that they could do it. That was part of one of the projects. Of course I killed it, you know what I mean?
Right, as you would,
God, listen, I did that thing. I'm thinking back right now, I'm reminiscing. But it was really, really, it was a wonderful experience. And when he showed it to me and showed me the other positive things that people were doing with individuals my age and older, I said, okay, let me give TikTok a try. And so that's what I did. I've been experimenting. What you see now is me experimenting on how the algorithms work and
yes, sir.
What you put up, when you put it up, how long it really needs to be. Because now I'm seeing the little notes that they give you. This needs to be at least a minute or two.
It needs to be a minute or two long.
Right. So I'm learning. But TikTok has been a wonderful way for what it is that I do. And I deal with also conscious business ethics. For me to put things out there on that, like what is that? And I teach about, I talk about conscious business ethics, and the way in which we need to keep the human in business, because we're losing that because of social media, because of these things here, the iPads and the laptops. We pay more attention to these things than we do to each other, and that's why I love what we're doing now. This right here is becoming extinct. We have to keep this going. And so in business, for managers, employees, CEOs and what have you, they have to understand that without this, you have nothing. I don't care how much money you're making. You're not really making an impact in the community. All you have is what you've always wanted, was your selfish money.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
So TikTok, I'm experimenting right now.
No, you seem to be having fun on TikTok, because I was going through and I was like, Migos. It was like Chris Brown. I was like, these are some... the music you were using, I was like, I recognize all these rappers, which is why I was like, okay, I'm gonna ask him about this when I see him.
I tried to choose music that had to do with the picture and what was happening. You know,
yes,
things like I'm not gonna stop, or every day I'm hustling, and you know what I mean?
Right.
Things like that,
Yes,
that
sir.
has to do with whatever image I've put up there. Then that's what I was doing, and so. Yeah, definitely experiment.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask. I was like, all right, what's your favorite rapper then? Like,
That's even though you really wasn't asking me that question. That's a very good question, because I haven't really dealt with rap today. I can't understand it. I can't. Listen. You uncles and me, right?
oh God.
Listen. Your uncle does not understand a lot of the things that are being said. Put it that way. Here's what you have to understand. The era that I come from, they were telling stories. You could follow the storyline. It was going somewhere. Right?
Yes, sir.
I have nothing to say about the talent of the rappers. I love what they're doing. The music is wonderful, and really, to be honest with you, that's what's moving people more than anything. But the words themselves, they're not telling really a whole lot of stories anymore. You know, it's more about what I can say to capture the listener versus me telling a story. And I can follow that storyline, and they can also possibly teach me something. Is everybody going to be that type of rapper or R&B singer? No. But, you know, that's my era, and so I try not to judge, as we were talking.
Right.
I try not to judge, but I just have to be truthful. A lot of it I don't understand.
Okay. Because I say that because I actually met DMX one time. And he was the nicest person. It was so weird. He was a nice person, because me and my mom met him, and he was like, "Oh, what's your name?" I said, "Justin." He's like, "Oh, well, all right. And you, who are you?" She was like, "Oh, well, and she was like, "Oh, I'm his mom." Right. And he was like, "Oh," and he was just talking, and the way he was talking, he was because we were saying, "Oh, I'm into acting," and and he was like, "Oh, you're not just gonna be national, you gonna be international. You don't say that, you say you gonna be international." And I was like, holy crap. Just to see that, he still had that same energy, but just what he was saying, he was, just about the whole, don't limit yourself, don't put limits on yourself. So he
was ahead of his time, and very intelligent.
I saw a freestyle from him, and I was like, this dude,
brilliant.
Oh, because he was like, I'll put a pinstripe across your windpipe. I was like, and just when you think he's saying that on the fly, I was like, this guy is
brilliant.
Yes.
And many individuals, when they get to a certain plateau, right? When they get to a certain place, sometimes their time is up, because they've taught. We look at what happened versus why it happened. Remember the root cause.
The root cause, yes. All right, the root cause. I like that. So I'm probably gonna ask you one more question. So I would say, as a young person who's especially when I was coming up in the professional world, whether that be, working in the VisFX industry or starting my own business, I really did struggle with networking.
Okay.
And I quickly found out, because of a certain person, her right there, the Desert Storm veteran right there in the gray shirt. Yes, you, ma'am. She wasn't just gonna let me, sit down. She really did nudge me.
Okay.
And she was really like, you're gonna get out and you're gonna network. And so for someone who doesn't have, someone in their corner, like mom and dad, because dad was very adamant. I'm like, listen, you need to get out. You need to represent yourself. You need to show up for yourself. So what are some of your networking tips for young people, whether they be, in a certain corporate setting, or whether they be for, developing their own business? I just know that networking, because I've heard that you are like the sum of the 5 people that you hang around with, or that, you know, your network is your net worth. You know, so being that someone starting from the ground up, what are some of your networking tips? Because you and your wife seem very well connected, and clearly you're great at networking. So I'm just wondering, what are some of your tips to a young person who's looking to better their networking skills?
3 things. Have a listening ear. Number 1. Be a student. Be a student. Sometimes we either see the road to success is right there. We've done a few things that have been successful as a young person, and we start taking off. We don't listen anymore. Now we're in charge. Be humble. Be a student of life. Be a student of your craft, whatever that craft is, whatever your business is. The individuals that are around you that you know, like you said, you're the sum total of your 5 closest friends. The individual around you that can give you what it is that you're looking for, shut this. If they ask you a question, answer the question that they asked. Unless it's a platform like this where we can elaborate. Answer that question and then shut up again. A listening ear, have a silent tongue, and have a faithful breast. What does that mean? Listening ear, silent tongue, faithful breast. The faithful breast is the portion where what they're giving you, you hold it dear. When you know that it's something that's going to help you, you hold it dear. And you don't release it to anybody. It's not for everybody. You just had a meeting with the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. He or she gave you some nuggets. And now you want to tell everybody what they said. Because you want everybody to know that you met with them. Right. It's unnecessary. You at the building stages, have a faithful breast. Whatever somebody has given you, you hold it, which also has to do with moving in silence.
I was thinking that too.
It's not necessary for us to want to be in the open and want to be known. All you have to do is do the work. So the main thing is be a student first. Listen, watch, learn. In networking, the loudest one in the room is the weakest one.
Okay.
You know, the one you see arms flapping and you need to, you just that another. No, the one that's sitting that you see watching and just sitting in there, they're silent and they're just taking everything in. That person, if they're not already, is going to become one of the greatest and strongest individuals because they are still students. Mm-hmm. They understand that life is about learning and they're holding those things dear to their heart. That's what a faithful breast is, right? We don't have to talk all the time. We don't have to give everybody all that we're doing. Take it in, use it. That's what the Underground Railroad was about. I'm not going to get into slavery and all of that, but the Underground Railroad had to do with you being able to move to get from point A to point B without individuals knowing what you were doing. So by the time you came to what we would call the promised land, guess what? You were already there. You were already free.
Right. And they couldn't take that away from you.
Because they didn't know where you were. They couldn't find you. You know? If everybody knows where you are, anybody can come. You know, this thing is, we talked about metaphysics and all of this and spirituality. Guess what? Individuals out here praying against you all day, all night, every day. While you sleep, they're up praying against you and what you're doing. Right?
Yes.
They find something to complain about because they have absolutely nothing. Jealousy is about, and they can only be jealous when they know what you're doing. Jealousy really is about me believing I don't have what you have within me. And so I don't even want what you have. I just don't want you to have it. Listening ear, silent tongue, faithful breast. The moves that you make them move in silence. Let others be your cheerleader. People will put you out there. You don't have to worry about it.
Right.
But if you stay on your grind, you'll be all right. You'll be out there before you know it.
Wow. All right. Well, you heard it from the man himself. All right. You heard, I believe we've talked Again, I want to thank you for being
Yes,
on the
sir.
show.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Not a
you,
problem.
Uncle
Thanks
Dennis.
for having me.
No problem. I'm glad you could come by. And so, that is it for today's episode. Make sure to stay tuned because we will be having more uncles on and maybe a couple of aunties later on. If I don't know, but stick around to find out. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment for the algorithm, guys.
Yes.
Thank you for watching.
Yes.
It takes my uncles and me.